This is the way.
This is the way. This is the way.
If you've had any struggles with head tracking or just want the most precise tracking, I believe the Pimax Lighthouse Faceplate is the way. And this faceplate works with the original Crystal or Crystal Light. This is going to allow you to use base stations over Pimax's default inside-out tracking, which uses the built-in cameras. Now, from what I've learned watching Pimax videos, this is a 60 frames per second camera, with the FPS being split 30 dedicated to the head tracking and 30 dedicated to the controllers. And when everything is working flawlessly, this is a well-balanced system, as you'll have no need for the expensive Lighthouse tracking base stations. And Pimax is constantly working to improve the software, and there was an update just today that claims to improve the head tracking even more. I personally like to add this IR light, which I ordered from Amazon, as I mostly fly at night in a pretty dark room. I've got mine set up behind me in a corner, facing towards me and the ceiling, and I find that this works pretty well for me. If you've seen any of my videos over the last few months, they've all been flown exclusively by using the inside-out tracking. So I can testify when everything's working perfectly, it does work very well. However, we all know that things aren't always perfect. And I do read the comments that other players sometimes do struggle with the head tracking. And we have to remember this is a PC VR headset, meaning your CPU is going to be used for the calculation of the head tracking. And DCS is a very CPU intensive title. I find it can be a challenge in finding that perfect balance of having the game look the best and also perform the best. And it can be very tempting to keep pushing the graphics higher and higher, and it will even run sometimes in that higher graphic setting for a while. But if you keep pushing it, you can eventually get that traffic jam in your CPU. And I have experienced that loss of tracking whenever my CPU gets pushed too far. And it's even map dependent. I find I have to tune the headset and the settings in DCS per each map. I mostly play Caucasus, and I feel like that's the easiest map to run. But if I want to play Marianas, I'll have to change the settings. And the Germany map, I basically have to run that thing in the lowest settings. And even then, that map is not flawless. I think what I'd like to do is bring up the FPS counter in DCS and then just do a comparison of the inside-out tracking compared to the Lighthouse tracking. So we'll test out the inside-out tracking first, and you can already see by that red lettering that we're CPU bound. And I double checked with Google just to make sure I knew what these lines meant. Green lines in virtual reality. Achieving a stable low green line on the FPS graph indicates you've configured your settings for smooth performance. This often means your FPS is consistent with the refresh rate of your headset, such as 72Hz or 90Hz, without major performance fluctuations. I find that if I get a CPU spike, it'll show up in the green line as a heartbeat. And when I get a lot of these little heartbeats, it does create stutter, and if you get enough of these little heartbeats, it can cause the headset to lose tracking. But so far we are good. So as long as we're flatlined, the head movement is pretty silky smooth, and I like to lean side to side as close as I can looking at the HUD. And if there is any stutter or jitter, I'll really see it in the HUD. And it could look as little as a slight vibration in the bars, but that's what we're looking for, and that's what we don't want. So I'm gonna fast forward until we do get some heartbeats. Oh, there we go. We just hit some heartbeats. It wasn't that noticeable. And if we move our head side to side, it's still pretty smooth. We'll go ahead and just shoot this guy with a missile to get him out of there. So if I do my little head tracking test, moving my head side to side around this HUD, it's still pretty silky smooth. So far we haven't really experienced any loss of tracking, and I'd like to say this is how it is most of the time, although I have experienced it in the past. And it's kind of like that thing where your car does something and you take it to the mechanic and then you tell them about it, but then when you drive around the block it never happens again. I mean, it happens so infrequent that I haven't been able to record it, so that's a good thing. But I do acknowledge that it can and does happen. So far with this map and these settings, and we're looking mostly up at the sky, it's been pretty easy on my CPU, so we haven't even come close to losing tracking, and so far it's been pretty flawless. So we're now down on the deck and we're starting to get a little bit of what I call heartbeats. But so far it hasn't affected the headset tracking at all, and stutters and jitters are not the same thing as losing tracking. But they can add up until it overwhelms the CPU, and then you could lose tracking. And I found for me, one of my culprits in overwhelming the CPU was actually OBS, as when I got a ton of heartbeats I could not figure out why. When I looked in the task manager, OBS was at the very top using a lot of resources. So you see me looking a lot behind me, trying to really overwhelm the head tracking, but I haven't been able to do it yet, as it looks like we have the Caucasus map really dialed in. So this is the Marianas, and oof, you see that big spike? That was right when we spawned in. And this is just at the menu, and we haven't even hit fly yet. And just hovering here, looking down the coast, we're getting spikes. And I can feel these stutters and jitters in the headset, as it feels like I might be starting to lose tracking in the headset. It's not bad yet, but I can just start to feel something. Let me click into the pass-through real quick. And that is an interesting pattern, as I have no idea what that means, as all the spikes are above the green line, and that was when I was in the pass-through. And then when I come back to the headset, they disappear, and now it's more like a regular heartbeat. And now we're actually flatlined, so that's good. So starting off, it's not that bad, just a few heartbeats here and there. Right here it flatlined, and that's pretty good. Just over these trees, I guess, it flatlined. Now we're picking up some more heartbeats. And so far the tracking's pretty good, even with these heartbeats. I can feel a little bit of stutters, but it's not bad considering how populated this map is. I can definitely feel a little bit of jitters and stutters, but it's not in the tracking itself, it's in the game. And I'm pretty sure I could probably just turn everything, whoa, almost hit the ground. I could probably turn everything completely down and get it even smoother. We're now trying out Germany, and there's the big spike when we first load in, and look at this map. It has a ton of heartbeats, and you can really feel the stutters and stickiness of this map as I lean side to side, but so far the tracking is still holding up. It's not the tracking's fault. I do think some of the tracking issues can be blamed on too high of a setting in DCS. Honestly, the head tracking is holding up quite well. We are getting a lot of CPU spikes and some stutters and jitters, but the head tracking itself is holding up. Ooh, almost hit the ground. So yeah, even on this map, I haven't changed my settings from Caucus, which I should lower them even more. And this map is surprisingly flyable. I know it's possible to break the tracking with inside-out tracking, as I've done it in the past, but let's go ahead and switch to the Lighthouse tracking and then do some more comparisons. So we've switched to the Lighthouse tracking, and there's no surprise here, it is very smooth. As I played for a long time with the AKX with Lighthouse tracking, and it was flawless back then, so I expected this, and this is what I'm seeing as well. There's also absolutely no CPU spikes at the main menu, which is good. So we've spawned in, and our CPU is still completely flatlined, so that is good. As soon as we hit fly, we did get a spike, but as I lean and move my head side to side very quickly, it is silky smooth. We got just the tiniest bit of heartbeats there, but the head tracking is still flawless. It's still buttery smooth. Alright, this is looking really smooth, not getting any CPU spikes. Let me dive down to the water and get a little bit closer and see if that, oh, we got a couple little spikes, but nothing to interfere with the tracking. And this is still very smooth. Still silky, silky smooth. Maybe that'll be my call sign, Silky Smooth. That's my alternate pimp name. Well, let's go ahead and jump over to Marianas and give that a little comparison. So a quick little fly around, and it does seem to be a little less CPU intensive with the Lighthouse Faceplate. For sure, I'm seeing less CPU spikes and heartbeats. I'm not exactly sure why. We're still getting a little bit of stutters and jitters, but it's definitely smoother and less CPU intensive. For me, the Lighthouse tracking is just unbreakable. So as soon as we spawn into Germany, we do get that big spike.
This is a free flight. Here you can learn the controls or explore the area.
As I'm flying around, it does feel like we are performing better than before. We're still getting some CPU spikes, but I feel like it has less stutters than it did, and you can kind of compare it for yourself. There's one big spike there, but yeah, I think the spikes are a lot smaller than they were before and just less frequent. And it does feel like we're performing just a little bit better. It's kind of hard to tell because we are still getting some stutters, but yeah, I'm pretty positive it's performing better. I think the main benefit to Lighthouse space stations is that you're just never going to lose tracking, no matter what your lighting conditions are. I could play in complete darkness if I wanted to and not have to worry about having the perfect lit environment, or worry about mirrors or reflective surfaces. It's just super reliable and dependable. So I am a big fan of the Pimax Lighthouse Faceplate, especially since I already had 3 of the Valve 2.0 lighthouses. They're left over from my 8KX days, which I did love that headset. And Valve base stations, especially 2.0s, are pretty expensive. Actually, I got 2 of my base stations off of Facebook Marketplace, and I got them for a pretty good deal. The Pimax inside-out tracking does keep getting better and better, and they just updated the Pimax Play software today, and from what I've tested, it's the best it's ever been. And while inside-out tracking does keep getting better and better, I'm still in the camp that believes that the Lighthouse tracking is still the best. So I had to look this up to get the numbers, but Valve's Lighthouse 2.0 base stations provide incredibly fast, precise head tracking by sweeping lasers 100 times per second, resulting in sub-millimeter accuracy and low latency performance. And because I have 3 base stations covering my play area, my coverage is better than Liberty Mutual.
Whoa, really? Oh! What the f***, Limu?
I guess he didn't like my joke. So I've been using this Lighthouse faceplate probably for over a week now or so, and honestly, I've had 0 loss of tracking. Not even once has it lost tracking at all. But if you do decide that you're going to get a Pimax headset like a Super or a Crystal Light, please click the links in my description because it does help out the channel. And if you use code RELOAD, you can get a small little 3% discount, but mainly it helps support the channel, and I appreciate you very much. Thanks for watching.
This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.
So what happens if you take that thing off?